take those same personal feelings and preferences and likes and dislikes and figure that out in terms of the journey that potential buyers go through at your dealership. Would you buy from you? And if not, is it because you're not earning the business?
Hey, Jason Rice here. And again, we're doing what we call a view from the top. In our weekly newsletter, we always get with one of our performance engineers, VPs, people that are in the trenches with dealerships, kind of bringing back what we used to run as a podcast called the Up Us. And so view from the top, we always reach out to some of our team members, give us kind of their perspective of what they're seeing as they're out in the trenches. And if anything, best practices and things that dealers can focus on right now. And so we got Eric Gidney. He's part of our team. Now, he's only been with us for about 6 months, but he has an extensive background in automotive, goes back to 1997, same year I started. And so, Eric, with that, hey, thanks for joining. And, again, give us some of your background.
Yeah, Jason, thanks for having me on here too this week. So, yeah, in 1997, I was 25 years old, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life yet, and answered a classified ad in the newspaper. Remember those things, right?
Mm-hmm. That's how I did too. And said I can make 50 to 80 grand a year. So
I think mine was 75 to 100. I think is what it said. And showed up at a single point Nissan store. The dealership's still here, but the ownership has changed hands a few times. But and interviewed, and I remember within, I don't know, maybe 24, 48 hours, was offered a job, and we started the following week, I think on Monday. And we went through, training all day in the conference room, and the showroom was so busy that afternoon, Jason, like late afternoon, early evening, that people were just like leaving. They weren't getting up, they weren't going on test drives. So they were like, hey, let's take the 4 or 5 trainees and just have them go on, rides with people. And I ended up selling a car. And I still remember her name. I'm not going to share it. Maybe she's not even with us anymore, but I sold a car, and that was it. That was kind of hooked. So I spent about 2 or 3 years in retail there. And in 1999, had the opportunity to go sell cars on the internet. Most dealers didn't even have a website yet, but here we were in 1999 getting ready to sell cars on the internet. And we turned that into a department that was doing 100, 130 cars a month. And Auto Trader came calling, and I spent a long time with Cox Automotive. And in between, I was one of the owners of Auto Uplink, so we did syndication and photos and window stickers and buyer's guides and kind of boots on the ground lot management type stuff, and making sure that the inventory showed up for all the people online. And but then time with CarNow and digital retail, and now getting to sort of spread the gospel and the experience and the insights and everything, and all the wonderful information that we've got at Lot Pop with dealers. So happy to be here, and happy to take my years of experience and see what I can take from it and share it with our folks.
Yeah, and so the topic and the title of your post was "Always Be New," and I know you shared some experience. I'll let you share it more here about how your first couple months went, but how'd your third month go?
Well, it might have even been the 4th month too, right? Just to be honest, because maybe I didn't adapt as quick as I should have. But I remember like it was May, and I had done really, really well those first few weeks, and then my first 2 months in the car business, June and July, I was a new car only salesperson too, and front end grosses were really, really strong, and I was one that always just kind of did what I told. Now my manager was a former drill sergeant in the Marine Corps, and he's an owner operator at a Nissan dealership now, still in the Philadelphia area. And what he told you to do, you did, because you knew it was going to help you sell a car today. And but somewhere along the way, I just thought I was a little bit smarter than the system. I thought I was a little bit smarter than the process, and started to shortcut stuff, and stopped trial closing people, and stopped asking for the business, and didn't necessarily open up at the price point that we wanted to open up negotiations with, that we were asked to. And and then I sat and I wondered why August I did 4 cars when the previous 2 months I had did 20 plus. And I, like a lot of times in my life, and we all do, I've made excuses, but in all reality, it was me just thinking that I knew my way around the car business, that I was the greatest gift to car sales. And when I went back to the fundamentals, I was able to come out of that slump that, truth be told, like I said, maybe might have been month 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're not in the dealership. We do weekly calls with dealerships and we get pretty involved with them, but obviously we're not in their showroom floor to really see or experience this. But I know what's been happening in the industry the last 4 years since COVID and there's a lot of people, man, I don't want to put the number 80%, but man, I would guess at least 60% of the workforce at the dealerships probably only known the post-COVID experience. And so I would imagine we run into, and maybe you do with these calls, a lot of these salespeople don't know the fundamentals in the first place to even, right? They had customers coming in just, hey, I'll take it, right? Or, hey, if you don't want it, I sell it to them. They didn't have to go through all those steps. But I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, we're finding these key dealers and salespeople and stuff finally realizing, hey, there's more to this, and I got to find some kind of steps to the sale. I mean, Steve is another one of our engineers. He was in my office here talking about how he brought his own old laminate steps to the sales that he had people carrying in his pocket, because he was just amazed at how many stores or people at the dealership, they're begging him to, hey, can you send me that? I need that, because they just don't know those fundamentals.
Yeah. And I think, even now, or back then, at least, we used to joke, like the steps of the sale isn't meet, greet, present numbers, right? There was everything in between in that sales cycle. And even now, I wonder if the meet and greet and the presenting of numbers is even done, correctly and in the right order. But you're right. It's, we do need to get back to, a lot of the salesmanship, if you will, right? I never I would have been sent home from my dealership, Jason, if I would have ever upped somebody and said, how can I help you? Right. Yeah. It was always, hi, my name is Eric. Welcome to XYZ dealership. And you are. That was every single thing. And, those formalities necessarily over a lead, a phone up, text up, whatever it may be, maybe they're not, it doesn't perfectly translate. But when we really look at sometimes our responses to our leads, you see that a lot of that appropriateness has kind of lost its way a little bit. I think sometimes we've gotten so caught up in our response times that we lose our response,
effectiveness.
Effectiveness, right? Like it needs to be compelling, not just quick. Especially too in an email, right? Like an email response. What happens in our email inboxes every day? The more that come in, the more that just continue to stack us down.
Yeah.
So I sent in a lead, and you responded with an autoresponder within 38 seconds. But if I get 40 more emails before I get to yours is all the way down the bottom anyway. So at that point, to me, how quickly I get it doesn't matter. It's the details, with the questions that I asked, the information that you gave me. How did you stand out from all the other folks that I possibly submitted a lead to?
Yeah.
So I think even just how we up folks on the internet, again, back to being new, right? Not forgetting, like how you and I were taught on how to, meet and greet our customers, whether it's digitally or physically.
Yeah. To your point, I mean, again, similar profile. I started in 1998 doing internet deals. And over time, I learned that, right? We would send out an auto response. But then what I learned is, okay, in about 2 minutes of that, I'm going to send out, now it was automated too, but I'm going to send out another email because more than likely they blew off the auto response. And the other one was about questions. Hey, I got your lead. In the meantime, while I'm checking availability of this car, I have a few questions. Are you open to this make or model? Are you looking just for this specific car? You open up other makes and models or similar in this price point. And by the way, just let me know. If not, I'll get you the direct information on this exact vehicle. And so I was hoping I would grab them that way, because like you said, that auto response, everybody, especially if they submitted a couple of them, gets lost in the shuffle. The question one allowed me again to set up, so I would hit 3 emails within 10 minutes, right? And so that in-stock email seemed more personable, because I'm going, hold on, here's the auto response. By the way, I got some questions, and now, okay, you didn't answer me, so here's at least what I got from what you told me so far. And then I would hit them with a phone call. And a lot of people think that was too much, but I'm like, well, no, because like you said, it's just, we're bombarded with all this information. And thinking about that too, you mentioned in the article about how, watch the details of that lead, right? Sometimes the customers are asking questions within that we lose focus on because, again, we know everything. We're too busy. Why don't you hit on that a little bit too?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've really been honored to do is that our dealer clients have found so much value in us that they've asked me in particular to mystery shop them. And I've hesitated doing it because sometimes I'm afraid of what I'm going to find on their behalf. But there's always phenomenal opportunities with it. And what I've done is I like to submit not just a lead, but an actual inquiry where I do ask a question. Those questions have been, hey, you happen to know what the towing capacity of this vehicle is? Or, hey, the photos didn't necessarily show me. Does it have a third row? I can't tell.
Yeah, I got a trade. Could you help me tell me what it's worth?
Yeah, whatever, something along those lines. And it's been, let's say, eye-opening that, you get the responses and not at no point is that question ever hit head on.
Yeah.
And, for a minute there, I was like, okay, maybe that's just not translating, right? Maybe the data from the lead submission form, which is still a big issue, potentially, if that's what's happening, isn't pushing over to the CRM and these folks aren't able to see it. But lo and behold, upon further review, it always was. So what it was is that very thing, those details matter. And it just made me reflect on time at the dealership, physically working on the lot, that if Bob and Mary Smith walked into my store and asked me those very same questions, I wouldn't ignore them. I'd answer, right? And it always reminded me too, again, of those managers that always taught me to always be new. And, there's no shortcuts to make sure that you're listening, right? We've got 2 ears, right? And one mouth so that we can listen more. But to also, again, just to realize that sometimes people weren't always shopping for a car. They were shopping for a salesperson. How many times those of us that are vets have heard that expression? Mm-hmm. And I think that still happens today digitally. If I'm going to submit that same inquiry about, what's the towing capacity on a pre-owned vehicle, the first one that answers me may be the first one that gets my business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they're specific to your wants and needs. And that's what's so important too. And you mentioned reading the emails, and that's one of the things, like when I was on the lot, I'd read the license plates. Here we are in June. If I see a plate coming in that, their tags are expiring in June or they expired in May, I got a deal, right? They ain't updating their plates because they're wanting to get rid of this car. That's so right. I would jump on that lead. But same thing when it came to internet lead. Not only did I try to read those comments, but I'm digging into the email address because sometimes you got Fisherman 1174. And I'm like, all right, that's somebody that likes fishing. He's turning 50 in November. That's what I would get out of that. For my mindset on how to handle this lead more personally. Or they work at a particular, like we had Monsanto factory in town. We have like Garmin's in this town here. It's like, oh, you work at Garmin? So does my uncle. I noticed your emails coming from Garmin. Have you been there long? My uncle's been there for, just to find something in common with it. Yeah. You do that. If you met them on the lot, if you meet and greet, right, you see a sticker on the back of their car, or you see their shirt and you're like, oh, you've been to Branson? Yeah, we were just there a week ago, right? So you got to do that through those emails too. And I think you can pull a lot of either the communication or just even the email address itself.
Right.
And so there's certain ways you just want to make that more personable with people, down to the details of what they ask specifically.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's amazing, and again, this is kind of the basics. And then not only that, I want to hit on it because it's something that I think is one of our strong points in helping dealers accomplish this. But also, if a customer walked in the door in a sold vehicle, we would not just say, hey, it's sold and turn around and walk away. We would say, man, I'm sorry that one got delivered last night, but I know it's a F-150 and I think it was around 40,000. You open other trucks because I just got a nice Silverado in with less miles. I think it's, and we start trying to slow them down and figure out what they're really looking for and switch them. But I don't think we really do that with leads nowadays. We got a 20, 30-day lead on a car that's sold. We haven't got a hold of them. Most places are just moving the loss. So you hit a little bit on that article. Let's dig into that a bit.
Yeah, no, and I think there's really a lost art to that. And I think it's part of, if you really want to earn, right? Like, let's get back to that, earning their business, right? Like, let's forget, sometimes that means we got to roll up our sleeves and figure this out. Mm-hmm. To your point, if somebody walks into our lot and that vehicle's sold, we're not going to, like you said, we're not going to say, hey, thanks for coming in though, right? Chances are too that if that vehicle that they inquired about was sold, there are other ones that are just like it. We're parked in the same general area, right? We don't park one pre-owned SUV over there and one over there. So it's really not that hard for us to walk them, which is what we would used to do, is walk them to the other inventory. But yet we don't do that with our online leads, right? With our digital leads, which is where the bulk of our leads are. And even when we do it, a lot of times what we do is just enough to say that we offered some other opportunities. If I inquired on a Ford Explorer, but you happen to have a beautiful brand, not brand new, but almost brand new CX-90 on the lot, I may not know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So you just telling me on the phone, well, I also have this, and I also have this, and I also have this. To me, that's the equivalent of like that same person coming on our lot, the car sold, and not walking them over to the other pre-owned SUVs, but just handing them a used car list and say, here, pick some, right?
Yep.
It's not going to be effective. What we need to do is, again, be compelling, be informative, educate them, and share with them the other inventory, and then email them the link. Do a video of the inventory, FaceTime them at the car, whatever it may be, because they may have no idea what a GMC Terrain is versus a Chevy Equinox.
Mm-hmm.
Even sister models within General Motors or Stellantis or whatever it may be, they may not have any idea what those are. They may have been honed in on one. So I think that, again, not shortcutting ourselves to remember always being new. Jason, we would even do that if someone was out of budget.
Yeah.
So if somebody was on a particular vehicle and we just couldn't get there with them and we were out of budget, I remember the first time that ever happened. And I went back to my manager. We're working it. And we couldn't get anywhere. He said, I want you to go back to your desk. I want you to say, follow me, and turn around and walk out the showroom doors and take them over to Maximas that don't have leather, moonroof, and bows.
Yeah.
Say, this is what you can afford. And this is the first time I ever done this, right? I'm like, they're not going to follow me. Are you crazy? I do it. I say, follow me, folks. And they followed me and we went over. And eventually we ended up bumping them back to the car that they came in on. But again, offering them switches and alternatives and not shortcutting things and not just also throwing our hands up in the air and giving up.
That goes back to, again, personalizing it. If I have a couple things, if I talk to the person, I probably found out they're a fisherman, right? But based on the email, I could see maybe they are a fisherman and they're on that F-150 that's sold. But then I got a Dodge Ram that pretty similar. And I mean, just an easy email saying, man, based on your email address, sounds like you're a fisherman. Do you happen to have a boat? Because if you do, I know you're interested in an F-150, but I got this Dodge Ram. Matter of fact, that tow's a little bit better than that F-150. If you happen to have a boat, and just something like that. And that's the other thing I think is somebody submits a lead on an F-150, it sells within a few days, and you're trying to call and email them. They're not answering the phone because they know it's gone. Yeah. All right. If they're really ready to buy, they're going to your website today and go, maybe I'll go by, look, see if that truck is still at the dealership and drive by there. And they go to your website and it's not there anymore. That's why they're not answering the phone. And so if you just start emailing them about and telling them the truck's gone, but you got a Dodge Ram and then you got a Silverado, if they don't want it, imagine that you submit a lead on F-150 and somebody's emailing about a Dodge Ram. You're like, what the heck you emailing me about a Dodge Ram? They might just, even if they don't want it, they'll, at that point in time, they're like, hey, quit sending me this Dodge stuff. I don't want a Dodge. I want an F-150. Oh, great. Finally heard from you. All right, let me see what else I got. So
right.
Just don't we give them that shot.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that sometimes trying to push them away just reinforces landing them back to the same vehicle. And like you said, we got a response out of them.
I got a response. I don't want a Ram. All right, well, finally. Okay. Well,
I can work with an objection, right? I can work with an objection. Yeah, for sure.
And so that's, again, to do that in email, because what you've got to do is emulate your showroom into your virtual lot and do what you would do there. You wouldn't say, hey, that car's sold and turn around and walk away. You try to switch them. Don't do that in your leads. If the guy came in with the bumper sticker talking about fishing, you probably bring it up. Well, then if you notice in an email, bring it up. I mean, try to have conversations and earn their business. So that's great advice there. With that, before we wrap up, I mean, is there any other particular thing that you say, man, if anybody could take one thing away, what would that be? Even if it's something we've already mentioned.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it's just back to like earning their business again, right? You had kind of mentioned, sort of like we got a little spoiled, right? We got a little spoiled. Folks came in, and if that wasn't what they wanted or they didn't want to pay that price, it was on to the next one, right? It was on to the next one. Well, now the next ones that we're on to need us to work a little bit harder, and that's not such a bad thing, right? And I think too, it gives us an opportunity to kind of get some loyalty back also, right? And get those folks, truly earn their business, keep having them come back. And I think the biggest part is just making sure that we're looking in the mirror and we're looking at our processes and saying, hey, is this consumer friendly? Is this how I would want to be treated? And I think that was really the moral of everything that I talked about with being new. Submit a lead to your own dealership, a guest lead, and just look at the process and see what it looks like. And is that where you'd want to do business? We all have opinions when we go out and we spend our money in the retail world or the restaurant world or the entertainment world. So take those same personal feelings and preferences and likes and dislikes and figure that out in terms of the journey that potential buyers go through at your dealership. Would you buy from you? And if not, because you're not earning the business.
Yeah, some people is like, especially like, well, I don't want to bug them. I don't want to send too much. Well, if you're just doing blanketed, templated emails every day, you are. But if you're more personable about where they are in their process and what they're looking for, hey, it's been a couple weeks. I know that truck's gone. I just want to help. The good news is I can't sell you anything. Or, bad news is the truck's gone. Good news, I can't sell anything. I'm just here to help now. If you're doing personal stuff like that, I'd rather over follow up and maybe get them mad than under follow up and lose an opportunity, because at least I knew I did everything I could to earn their business.
Yeah.
And 20 plus years of either doing leads myself for 8+ years and the other 12 plus years of helping, I think I've had one customer get mad or upset that, hey man, you guys are just doing way too much follow up or something like that. Right. Yeah. So I'll take that shot, of all the, than just dropping the ball.
Well, if they don't buy a car, they don't get a survey. So it's okay.
Exactly. Every other every other dealership's dropping the ball. So I'd rather not lose opportunities dropping the ball. I'll over follow up. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us on View from the Top / the Up Bus version of a podcast here just to help our dealerships along. Again, we got newsletters to sign up for. Visit our website. You can go lotpop.com or actually lotwalk.com. We got access to a book that we wrote with all the data and everything we track. We got video content of tips that are out there every week to try to help dealerships stay ahead of this changing market. And again, Eric, thank you for your time and pouring into whoever might be watching this.
That's all right. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.